Alright, I am back working on the 454 project for Rusty here, so I'm going to start building this thing back up. I finally got the heads back from Custom Auto, here at a local machine shop here in Prince George. And what I have here is, these are World Products Grumpy Jenkins heads. There you go, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, it kind of says it in there. Harder to read through the phone. So these, yeah, made by Merlin and World Products for Bill Grumpy Jenkins. These are a very inexpensive street type cast iron head. These are going to work very well for that motor. These are not a Mark V head or a Gen 5 head. These are a Mark IV off of the old school big block. Easy way to tell is these have adjustable valve train in them, so that's one of the easiest ways to tell. These are not supposed to go on that engine, but they will. So one of the things I really like about this is, besides the adjustable valve train, these things have 219 intake and 188 exhaust valves, and that's far better than the 208 and 165 I think it is on the old school peanut port heads and most oval port heads that factory 454s came with. 119cc combustion chambers. I had sent these up to Custom Auto to put the bigger springs in for the cam that we're putting in, which is going to be a surprise in a little while. We just had to open up these pockets here a little bit to fit these. These are fairly big springs. Keep in mind that this is a towing motor, so we're not doing anything crazy, but I will show you in a little while why we had to go to big double valve springs and open those up. So they put them all in for me, lapped the valves and everything, because I was keeping it on a budget, so I didn't want to do a whole valve job and everything. So yes, these are what we're putting on. Gen 4 head or Mark IV heads on a Gen 5 block. How is that possible, you ask? Because these things have stupid holes here that the Mark IVs don't. One way. Felpro makes a gasket. The 1037 cylinder head gasket. It took me a lot of research to figure that out, because I knew people had done it before. So after doing my research to put these heads on that block, came up with that gasket number. And that's what we're going to use. So if I do have head gasket problems in the future, I will let you know, and then I'll be pissed off. But after the research I've done, those are the gaskets to use, so that's what we're going to do. So now I'm going to do some cleanup on this thing. As you can see, I still haven't cleaned the gasket surfaces or anything like that, so we're going to do that. And then we're going to put those heads on, and I'll walk you through all that kind of stuff. Alright, so I got the one side cleaned up here on the deck. Nice and clean, ready to be reinstalled on this side. We have to turn it around to the other side yet. So how I get these so nice and clean is I use one of these scuff pads on the end of my angle die grinder, and it peels off the gasket pretty good. Sometimes they load up. You got to go through a couple of them because the gasket can be that way. So once you get all that done, then what I do is I take this. This is a thread chaser, and I run it through all the bolt holes and then spray brake clean through them. Always a good thing to clean these out so you can get the proper torque, the bolt holes out so you can get the proper torque on the head bolts and everything when you torque them down. Strongly recommended not to use a tap on that, because a tap will remove more material and make the bolt holes weaker. So these go in there and just clean out just the junk and leave the metal and the threads intact. So yeah, that's what I've done so far. I've sprayed some stuff on the carbon on the pistons. I'm going to try and clean them up. I used my scuff pad on this one real quick, and I'm going to let the other one soak some more before I play with them. So that's one side. I'm going to do the other side, and then we will bolt some heads on this thing. Okay, so we got the first head set in place. Everything's cleaned. All the bolt holes are cleaned. All that kind of fun stuff. Next step is putting all the bolts in. I took all the bolts over the wire wheel, cleaned them up. Now we're getting ready to put them in. These holes because they are an open hole and not a blind hole, difference being a blind hole will actually have a bottom to it so that nothing else can get into it. These are an open hole, which means they go right down into the cooling jackets. So you need some Teflon paste or Teflon tape on there. I prefer paste for this kind of stuff. Put all those in there, and then we will snug them down and torque them up. And that'll be one side. And then we got the other side clean. All cleaned off, and the holes are all cleaned out. But before I set the gasket and head on, we'll give it one final clean and all that kind of good stuff. And there we go. So, and then we'll make sure, as we're doing this, we grab the torque specs and the torque procedure and follow that to a T. Make sure that head's going to be good and clamped down. The final thing you should know, when you're doing the torque specs, it usually does it in 2 or 3 stages. When you get to the final stage and you go over, you're not done. Go over one last time to make sure none of the bolts are going to move again, especially the center ones. Make sure they're at that final torque sequence. So do the final torque sequence and then go over one more time over the whole head and make sure nothing else is going to move. Alright, so I got a lot of work to do. Couple words of wisdom there for you. And let's keep going. And there we go. After going through the torque and all that kind of stuff on the heads, they're installed. Ready to go for the next little surprise we got for this thing. So we've got a stock short block. We got some good medium performance cylinder heads on here. We got to add a few more things. And it'll be coming. Nice little surprise be coming in the next video when I assemble this thing a little bit more. Get her closer to being able to put in. Got to keep watching, waiting, seeing. It should be fun.